The storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolled across the Wyoming sky, swallowing the last light of day. The wind howled through the hills like a pack of hungry wolves. Dust spun across the lonely prairie, and rain began to fall in heavy sheets. Inside a small, weather-beaten cabin near the edge of town, Clara Bennett hurried to close the shutters. At 28, she had already known more hardship than most people faced in a lifetime. Her husband had died 3 years earlier after a ranch accident, leaving her alone with debts and a small piece of land that barely produced enough crops to survive. The cabin creaked under the force of the storm. "Please hold together," Clara whispered as she looked around her modest home. She had spent the entire day repairing fences damaged by the wind. Her hands were rough from work, but she never complained. There was no one else to do the job. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside. Clara jumped. Through the rain-covered window, she spotted something moving near the old cottonwood tree beside her property. At first, she thought it was a fallen branch. Then lightning flashed across the sky. A horse stood trembling in the rain, and beneath it lay a man. Clara grabbed her lantern and rushed outside despite the storm. Mud soaked her boots as she ran across the yard. The horse snorted nervously, but didn't run away. The stranger was unconscious. His clothes were soaked. A deep cut marked his forehead. He looked like a cowboy who had traveled a very long distance. "Sir," Clara called. No answer. The storm grew stronger. She knew leaving him there meant certain death. With great effort, she dragged the injured stranger. The storm raged through the night. Rain hammered against the roof while thunder rolled across the prairie. Inside the small cabin, Clara worked by the glow of a lantern. She cleaned the stranger's wound and wrapped a bandage around his forehead. The man remained unconscious for hours. His face was rugged and weathered by years under the western sun. A faded scar crossed one cheek, and his hands were rough like those of a rancher. Yet his clothes, though muddy and torn, were made from better material than most cowboys could afford. Near midnight, he finally stirred. Clara looked up from her chair. The stranger slowly opened his eyes. For a moment, confusion filled his face. "Where am I?" he asked weakly. "In my cabin," Clara replied. "You were lying in the storm. You hit your head." The man tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "Easy," Clara said. "You're lucky to be alive." A faint smile appeared on his lips. "Then I suppose I owe you my thanks. My name is Clara Bennett." He hesitated before answering. "Ethan Cole." Something about the pause caught Clara's attention. It felt as if he had almost given another name. Still, she said nothing. Outside, the storm continued to howl. Clara prepared a simple meal of soup and bread. Ethan ate slowly, clearly exhausted. "You live out here alone?" he asked. "Yes." "No family?" "Not anymore." For a moment, sadness filled her eyes. Ethan nodded quietly. "I know what it's like to lose people." The words sounded genuine. As the hours passed, they spoke little, yet an unexpected comfort settled between them. Clara found herself relaxing in a way she had not done for years. Before sunrise, Ethan glanced through the window toward the dark prairie. His expression suddenly changed. He seemed worried, almost frightened. "Is something wrong?" Clara asked. He looked away. "Maybe." That answer only deepened the mystery. The next morning, Clara walked outside to feed the horse. While checking the saddle, she noticed something tucked beneath a leather. The discovery stayed in Clara's mind all day. As she worked in the garden behind her cabin, she kept thinking about the document hidden inside Ethan's saddlebag. The stranger sleeping under her roof was not some wandering cowboy. He was a wealthy landowner, perhaps one of the richest men in the county. Yet he had said nothing. Inside the cabin, Ethan was recovering quickly. By afternoon, he insisted on helping with chores despite his injury. "You should rest," Clara told him. "I've rested enough," he replied with a grin. "Besides, I'm not very good at sitting still." Soon he was repairing a broken fence beside her field. Clara watched from a distance. Most wealthy men she had met preferred giving orders. Ethan worked harder than anyone she knew. Sweat covered his shirt, and he never complained. As the days passed, his strength returned. The storm clouds disappeared, replaced by endless blue skies. Golden sunlight stretched across the prairie. Wildflowers bloomed along the riverbanks, and the mountains glowed purple at sunset. For the first time in years, Clara found herself looking forward to each day. One evening, they rode horses to a nearby hill overlooking the valley. The setting sun painted the land in shades of gold and orange. "It's beautiful," Ethan said quietly. Clara smiled. "My husband used to bring me here." The smile faded slightly. "I haven't returned much since he died." Ethan remained silent for a moment. Then he said softly, "Losing someone changes everything." His voice carried a sadness deeper than Clara had expected. "Who did you lose?" she asked. He stared toward the horizon. "My younger brother." The answer seemed to cost him something. Clara noticed a pain in his eyes and chose not to ask more. For a while, they simply watched the sunset together. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. As darkness settled 3 days later, Clara rode into town for supplies. The small frontier town was busy. Horses stood tied outside the general store. Ranch hands filled the boardwalks. Laughter drifted from the saloon. As Clara stepped onto the wooden sidewalk, she noticed people whispering. Some glanced toward her with surprise. Others looked nervous. Before she could understand why, the town banker hurried toward her. "Mrs. Bennett," he said, "is it true? Is what true? That Ethan Cole is staying at your place?" Clara froze. "So you know him?" The banker looked stunned. "Know him? Everyone in the county knows him." Clara's heart pounded. The banker pointed toward the hills surrounding the valley. "Most of that land belongs to Ethan Cole." She remembered the document she had found. "He really owns all that?" "Nearly half the county." The words hit her like a hammer. As she rode home that evening, questions filled her mind. Why had Ethan hidden his identity? Why pretend to be an ordinary cowboy? When she arrived at the cabin, Ethan was repairing the barn door. He smiled when he saw her, but Clara wasn't smiling. She held up the document. "You want to tell me something?" The smile disappeared from his face. Silence filled the air. Finally, Ethan lowered his eyes. "You found it. You lied to me." "I never meant to." "Then why hide who you are?" Ethan leaned against the barn wall. "Because people treat me differently when they know. That wasn't your decision to make." His jaw tightened. "You're right." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan revealed the truth. Years earlier, after his father died, Ethan inherited one of the largest ranching operations in the territory. But wealth had brought enemies, greed, and betrayal. Even worse, his younger brother had been killed during a violent dispute over land. Since then, Ethan rarely trusted anyone. "I want to know what it felt like to be seen as a man instead of a landowner," he admitted. Clara's anger softened slightly. The next morning, fear spread across the valley. Smoke rose from a distant ranch where the Calloway brothers had already struck. Families packed their wagons. Ranchers gathered in town, worried about what would happen next. The Calloways were known for violence. If someone refused to sell their land, fences were burned, livestock disappeared, and sometimes people were hurt. Clara stood outside her cabin, staring across her small property. "This land is all I have left," she said quietly. Ethan stood beside her. "You won't lose it." She wanted to believe him, but the worry in his eyes told her the danger was real. That afternoon, 3 riders appeared on the dusty road. The Calloway brothers. Their leader, Wade Calloway, sat tall in the saddle with a cruel smile. "Well," Wade said, looking around the property, "seems this little ranch is still standing." Clara stepped forward. "This land belongs to me." Wade laughed. "Not for long." Ethan moved beside her. The outlaw's smile disappeared instantly. "Ethan Cole." "Wade." The tension between them was immediate. "You should have stayed out of this," Wade warned. "I don't let bullies steal from hard-working people." Wade's eyes narrowed. "This isn't over." The brothers turned their horses and rode away, but everyone knew they would return. That night, Ethan gathered several ranchers in Clara's barn. They planned how to protect the valley. As the meeting ended, Clara noticed Ethan standing alone outside. The moonlight reflected in his eyes. "You could leave," she said. "None of this is your responsibility." He shook his head. "Yes, it is." "Why?" Ethan looked directly at her. Because this valley matters. Then he added softly, and because you matter. Clara felt her heart race. Before she could respond, a distant glow appeared across the prairie. Her stomach dropped. Ethan! He turned. Flames. Bright orange flames. The fire was moving toward her barn. The Calloways! Someone shouted. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Men ran for water. Horses screamed in panic. The wind pushed. The flames roared higher as Clara rushed into the burning barn. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Sparks flew through the darkness while frightened horses kicked against their stalls. Easy, Clara called, coughing. Easy. One young mare was trapped beneath a fallen wooden beam. The terrified animal struggled desperately. Clara grabbed the beam and tried to lift it. It wouldn't move. The fire spread across the walls. Heat pressed against her face. Outside, ranchers shouted in alarm. Then Ethan burst through the smoke. Clara! She turned in surprise. You shouldn't be here. I could say the same thing. Together, they pushed against the heavy beam. Finally, it shifted. The mare scrambled free and raced toward the open door. But at that moment, part of the burning roof collapsed. A large timber crashed between them and the exit. Clara's heart nearly stopped. The fire was closing in. Ethan quickly scanned the barn. There was another way out through a small side door, but flames blocked the path. Without hesitation, Ethan removed his thick ranch coat and wrapped it around Clara. What are you doing? Getting you out? No. Listen to me. For a moment, the chaos seemed to disappear. Only the two of them remained. His eyes held sincerity Clara had never seen before. I've spent years carrying regret, he said quietly. After my brother died, I shut everyone out. I stopped trusting people. I stopped living. The fire crackled around them. Then Ethan gently took her hand. And then I met you. Tears filled Clara's eyes. Ethan, I love you. The words hit her harder than any storm ever could. I love your strength, your kindness, the way you never give up. The roof groaned overhead. We need to go. Clara cried. Ethan nodded, using his body to shield her from the flames. He led her through the burning passage toward the side door. A burning beam suddenly fell. The sun rose over the valley in a blaze of gold and orange. For the first time in days, the sky was clear. Clara stood outside her cabin, watching Ethan prepare his horse. His shoulder was bandaged in the barn fire, but determination filled his eyes. You don't have to do this alone, Clara said. Ethan smiled. I won't be alone. As if on cue, dozens of ranchers rode into the yard. Men and women from across the valley had come to help. The Calloways had spent years threatening honest families. Now the people were finally standing together. By mid-morning, Ethan and the ranchers reached the old canyon where Wade Calloway and his brothers were hiding. Seeing the crowd, Wade realized his reign of fear was over. You think you've won, he shouted. No, Ethan replied calmly. The people won. The sheriff stepped forward with several deputies. Within minutes, the Calloway brothers were arrested. Their days of intimidation had finally ended. As the outlaws were led away, a wave of relief swept through the valley. The fight was over. The danger was gone. And for the first time in years, the future looked bright. Several weeks later, life began returning to normal. The burned barn had been rebuilt. New fences stretched across Clara's property. Wildflowers covered the hillsides. One evening, Ethan invited Clara to ride with him to the hill overlooking the valley, the same place where they had watched the sunset together. The prairie glowed beneath the golden light. A gentle breeze moved through the tall grass. Clara smiled. I never thought life could feel this peaceful again. Neither did I. Ethan reached into his coat pocket. His hand trembled slightly. Clara noticed. What is it? Instead of answering, Ethan stepped closer. Then he dropped to one knee. Her breath caught. Clara Bennett, he said softly. The entire valley seemed to fall silent. When the storm brought me to your door, I thought I had lost my way. His eyes never left hers. But you gave me shelter. You gave me hope. You reminded me how to live again. Tears filled Clara's eyes. Ethan opened a small velvet box.